Sanji Vinsmoke. Y'all have been itching for me to say something positive about this guy when it comes to his scaling, since most of you either think I'm biased against bro or just a Zoro glazer. But today I'm going to not only discuss how strong Sanji is currently in my opinion, but address all the relevant feats that the fans usually try to wank out of proportion to push their own personal agendas. I just want to make it clear that I am really not biased towards anyone besides Chopper, obviously. My sweet glorious king, he's top one in the verse. But seriously, with that aside, let's now get into his scaling. Since I haven't talked about Sanji's scaling specifically ever, just by itself, I'd like to briefly talk about his scaling pre-Wano. Right before and after the time skip starts, Sanji portrays relativity to Gear 2 Luffy when they combat the pacifistas. And even before Sabaody, he was performing pretty well against the likes of Jabra and even Oars, showing that he really wasn't that far off from Zoro and Luffy in terms of power. Granted, he was weaker than them. However, I do not think it was by that much, and to say that Gear 2 Luffy could one-shot Sanji in pre-time skip or even in the beginning of post-time skip is a little silly. Even after they return to Sabaody, he somehow survives a punch from both Jinbei and Gear 2 Luffy at the same time while performing pretty decent against arguably Dofi's strongest executive and somehow impressing Doflamingo himself. This is important to note since, for one, Virgo was beating Smoker throughout their fight and he got one-shotted by Doflamingo, whereas Sanji could recover and receive a compliment from him. And the Virgo statement is mainly only in the anime, but I mean, I don't know. If you guys think that Pika and Trouble would slam Virgo, then I mean, be my guest. But we'd see Sanji's power regardless start to step up in Whole Cake, an arc where he's personally going through the motions and managed to come out stronger than ever before. Being able to not only fight some of Big Mom's commanders, but even blitz and damage Oven, the same character capable of drawing blood from Katakuri, along with being said to have the highest toughness in the Big Mom crew. We even see Sanji weaving an attack from Katakuri, but it's such a small attack I don't know how good of a feat it is. Apparently, it's confirmed that here Sanji is able to see into the future. Whether they're just kind of making a hyperbole about basic observation, or them talking about Katakuri, or them actually talking about Sanji is unknown, but it's there. By the point of Whole Cake, Sanji should at least be in that Doflamingo tier, if not surpassing it, since even before these feats, he was already portraying relativity to the likes of Luffy at the beginning of the Wedding Crash. With that brief little summary of where Sanji was at out the way, let's talk about the scaling you guys came to see. Not only would Sanji get a whole suit that increased his power, but he'd lose the suit and gain a power-up that was even stronger than that. So before we talk about his Ifrit Janbei, we need to talk about the raid suit. This was something given to him after the Whole Cake event, and we see that he was able to slam Page 1 and even tango with King momentarily in this suit. Both of these guys are some of Kaido's best. I mean, King himself is Kaido's strongest soldier directly. So it's clear that even before his Ifrit Janbei power-up, Sanji should be in that Tobiropo tier, no question. I mean, he beats one of the Tobiropo. Meaning, at the very worst, he should be at least capable of harming the likes of Snake Man, Luffy, and Katakuri by the end of Whole Cake. And Sanji would go on to abandon the suit and combine his discovered enhanced exoskeleton with his Haki plus Diablo Janbei to then create blue flames and enter a completely new realm of both power and speed. Queen would go from perceiving and being able to at least tag Sanji to now believing he's invisible, but in reality he's just moving so fast that Queen can't see him. Queen being the same guy who can perceive flames on King, who was fighting Raid Suit Sanji, and also Marco, which would mean Ifrit Janbei is at least a blitz level difference above the Raid Suit. Now, Sanji doing this is pretty crazy, and it is one of the best representations of speed in the series in my opinion, but I feel like a lot of us forget that he's blitzing a character not really known for his speed, and at best should be slightly faster than King maybe? I'm not talking about Queen, I'm talking specifically about Sanji and his Ifrit Janbei power-up, since King himself can also amp his speed by turning his flames off. However, it shouldn't be to the same degree as Sanji's Ifrit Janbei, since with Sanji we see it blatantly being a perception blitz, whereas with Zoro he was just having a harder time hitting King with his flames off, but he wasn't blitzing him like how Sanji was blitzing Queen. A lot of people look at this feat and think, oh my god, Sanji would blitz and one-shot Zoro. For one, Zoro was significantly weakened by the time him and Sanji met up, which is why him and Sanji were portraying relativity with one another. But Sanji being in that King and Marco tier should be consistent, especially when we get into Egghead, which a lot of people like to see it as Sanji's glow up, oh my god, Sanji is equal to Zoro. In my opinion, I feel like Egghead actually pushes more what I was saying earlier. Now you see, Sanji, like Marco, didn't get completely completely stomped by Kizaru. However, I don't know how valid this comparison is, since not only is Kizaru holding back, but he's also weakened. Sanji himself isn't physically blocking the lasers. And right after this cool moment, he's nowhere to be found, and Luffy just handles it anyway. So I don't understand where the Egghead Sanji agenda is even going. The fight didn't even last like 10 pages. Most fans are now portraying it like, oh, Sanji is fighting an admiral while Zoro is struggling with Lucci, but then you read the actual chapters and realize Sanji's feats in Egghead are a whole lot of nothing. Honestly, these feats make me start to question if Sanji could even overcome Marco's Devil Fruit or King's durability, since he's not even holding up to par to a weakened and holding back Kizaru, while Marco wouldn't be fighting a Kizaru who's fatigued, and also has other feats to support that he might just overwhelm Sanji with his Devil Fruit. And to address the King stuff, Sanji, while bloodlusted, couldn't even damage the weakest Seraphim. Granted, he wasn't using Ifrit Janbei, but regardless, we still don't even have the answer of if Ifrit Janbei can even bypass King's durability. I'm not gonna lie, Sanji's scaling in Egghead doesn't really exist, and really nothing has changed from what his scaling has been for basically the last 2 years at this point. This man is still fighting the King and Marco allegations, and it seems like he will be losing this case if bro doesn't stop running from Kizaru. Seriously though, I do want to say that Sanji, regardless of what you think of him, is definitely in the higher echelon of One Piece characters. However, I do not think he's fighting Yamato, Law, Kid, Zoro. That's just let's calm down now. But I do think him versus King and him versus Marco, and really those three, are just pretty much in a deadlock match. And until he does something crazy against Kizaru, he will be the dispo of the monster trio. Goodbye.